ending 1 minute at a time.
I was blind, but now I see.
Working jobs we hate, so we buy shit we don't need.
Ideas are brittle.
If you had one shot, everything I'd ever read, heard, seen was now organized and available.
Now you fucking khakis.
Life moves pretty fast.
The Biohacking Secret Show.
Brandon Amalani, welcome to the Biohacking Secret Show.
Thanks, Anthony. Nice to be here, man.
It's wonderful to have you, and we've had a couple conversations offline. I love the technology that you guys have created, especially in this world where so many people are talking about 5G and electromagnetic frequencies, and people are becoming more and more aware of the role that they can play impacting and influencing our biology. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, for the listeners who aren't familiar with EMFs and 5G, what's 30,000 foot view? What are they and how do they impact humans and life on this planet?
That's a good question and a huge question because a lot of people have become aware of electromagnetic frequencies through this whole 5G understanding online. And what people don't realize is that these previous generations 5G is just a continuation of these earlier generations. So anytime we have any wireless technology like cell phones, Ethernet, internet, anything in your house that runs off electricity actually generates an electromagnetic field. And all of these electromagnetic fields that are what we call non-native or not natural have a very repetitive way that the signal is transmitted, and that interferes with cellular biology on a number of different levels. We could get into those deeper as far as like inflammation, the voltage-gated calcium channels, memory and focus, nerve synapses, all these kind of things are affected by electromagnetic fields.
Nice. And the Blue Shield technology, I mean, this is something, as I kind of look across the office here, I have a Blue Shield cube plugged in kind of where I work and where I sleep. And then upstairs, we have another unit plugged into the wall. And you guys have a portable device that I carry around a lot when I'm driving, especially going on road trips. Or, I was at Tony Robbins' Business Mastery in January of this year before everything got shut down, and made sure just to kind of have my Blue Shield portable on me the entire time. Tell us a little bit about like the mitigation benefits of the Blue Shield technology and how that helps to protect ourselves from the inflammation, the deterioration of memory and focus, increased exposure to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, and some of the negative effects they can have on our nervous system function and vitality.
Sure. Yeah, the first thing to understand is that Blue Shield doesn't block anything. It really can't change a microwave signal, for example, into anything other than what it is. So how the Blue Shield works is that it uses a longitudinal waveforms, actually multiple longitudinal waveforms, and transmits a signal into the environment. And because it's using nature-based frequencies and an algorithm that never stimulates your body in the same way twice, your body responds to that parasympathetically over the EMF. So your body wants to tune in. And the best analogy I've come up with is kind of like a radio station. If you're tuning your dial on your radio in your car, you're finding that particular carrier signal that has the information or the code that is your favorite song. It's coherent. You can hum along to the rhythm, you tap your foot to it. And if you change to another radio station, you'll get a totally different carrier signal. It doesn't mean they're all not bouncing around in the airwaves. It's just you're tuned into a particular carrier signal that has a specific song. So what we're doing is we're entraining the cells. If the cells were like little radios with antenna, we're tuning those into a particular bandwidth that basically allows the body to reallocate immune power back into the body, back to developing homeostasis. And it no longer seems to attack the EMF, which is part of these repetitive signals in the environment, is that your body mounts an immune response, not much different than it would for a bacteria or virus or any kind of pathogen. So it's protecting the body at the cellular level through sympathetic entrainment or sympathetic resonance.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, like these electromagnetic frequencies that have been around from 2G to 3G, each level up is, and correct me if I'm wrong, roughly like 10x more powerful. Am I even using the right vernacular there, where like 5G compared to 3G is like 100 times more powerful, and therefore the negative effects are more substantial? Or am I misspeaking here?
So what's happening with 5G? So there's low 5G and there's high 5G, and we really have to break this down as simple as we can on the electromagnetic spectrum. So when the infrastructure like 1G, 2G, 3G, and there's videos that go into this in much more detail, and I'll kind of give you the Reader's Digest version. We have more wireless devices, people with security systems, cell phones all over the place. We're constantly using more and more bandwidth within a spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. So once that spectrum gets saturated, we actually have to free up more bandwidth. It's like different radio stations. Again, you have to have more and more space for all these different devices to come into play. So 5G actually feeds off 4+, 4G, 3G. It's all kind of a layered system, kind of like the internet. So it's stacked on top of each other and it all works together. And where 5G is coming into place and why it's so infrastructure heavy essentially is that they have to have repeaters all over the place within short distances. 5G, anywhere from the low 5G, which is 20 gigahertz, all the way up to 300 gigahertz. That's a pretty wide spectrum of bandwidth. And what it's using is the ability to ping off other cell phones, towers, all this kind of stuff, information as needed, and then off again, rather than being constantly on and generating. It's pinging and then off. And based on where you're moving, it's triangulating you, which is kind of creepy on a lot of levels if you know how to use it in certain ways. It can basically get you really fast data, really fast information. The limitation is that it can't penetrate buildings very easily. So it just bounces off things. So you have to have some of these lower bandwidths, which are just as dangerous because, okay, let me back up just a little bit. There's no real such thing as a good or bad frequency. It's really how it's generated and created and transmitted. If you can take one of the 5G range frequencies, let's say 300 gigahertz, and if it's spontaneous and lasts less than 15 seconds, then it's actually beneficial and immune boosting on certain levels to your biology. But if it's repetitive, constant, and lasting longer than that, it has detrimental effects and starts every process from breaking off these micronuclei of the DNA, which is a mutated form of the protein that doesn't necessarily die, but it starts to grow, and you get these growths that are out of control that the immune system can't particularly tag very well because of the protein structure around it. We call them growths, tumors, in some cases cancer. So so the whole spectrum of what we're using will actually have negative impacts on the biology long term.
Yeah, and I'm going to share some things in this episode that I believe to be true. I encourage everyone to do their own research, and my opinions are not necessarily shared by Blue Shield or Blue Shield USA or you, but I do want people, I do believe in sharing what I believe to be the truth, knowing that we all reserve the right to refine our positions. I believe that a lot of this technology is being rolled out. I believe that a lot of the COVID narrative that was created is to basically create this technocracy, a one world global government where there is less reliance on police, where you can get speeding tickets based on them being able to use these towers, determine how quickly you were going in your car because of the speed at which your phone was traveling, and then on top of that, it's basically like a surveillance state where people can be monitored and controlled using technology rather than police officers. And what I'm hearing you say is that there can be negative health effects of this technology that they're rolling out for that, I believe, for that purpose. And the Blue Shield technology puts out a frequency that is more harmonious with what our cells have evolved with over tens of thousands of years. And if you kind of give two different signals to the body can then say, okay, this one is beneficial. I'm going to have a hormetic response or an adaptation because of that. And this can allow us to exist more harmoniously with our environment.
Right. That's absolutely correct. I mean, you can look at Dr. Bruce Lipton's work when he was doing the Petri cell experiments, where he would have no human influence, because obviously human cells resonate at the level of human thought and consciousness. He took a video camera and put toxins on one side of the Petri dish, nutrients and beneficial things for the cells on the other side. And in every single case, the cells would migrate to what's beneficial. And that basically, and he repeated that over and over. And what that tells us is that the cells have an innate intelligence. It knows what's good for it, essentially. It's evolved over eons to kind of keep our body regulated. You know all about the mitochondria and how that adapts to light and temperature and all of these kind of things. So we're very our body is basically a scalar emitter. So these subtle longitudinal frequencies that are present and prevalent in nature, our body responds to much more than electromagnetic waves that are created. Even though every electromagnetic wave has a scalar component, if it's moving in a natural way, the body's going to naturally gravitate towards it, like you're saying, and want to sympathetically resonate with what's beneficial versus what's toxic.
That makes sense. And so how was this technology developed? Maybe you could tell us a little bit of the origin story of the Blue Shield.
Yeah, that's a long one. So Mark Langdon, he's the founder and chief of Blue Shield. He's based out of New Zealand, and he's been working on this stuff since about, I believe it's 1986. And initially, they were using the same kind of old school tech that everybody else was using. High voltage coils, all of these kind of things, producing single frequency generators. There's a lot of ways to actually create scalar. But as it evolved over time, back in the late 90s, they started playing with the algorithm and creating a really complex layerment of code that basically got it to where your body doesn't tune it out just like any other artificial signal. Your body has a natural impedance and tries to block everything out. Kind of a good example of this is when you're sleeping, you're not going to remember an audiobook if it's playing on your stereo. You're going to block that out. Your nervous system is going to go into a different brainwave state, and you're not going to remember that audiobook. So
unconsciously.
Yeah, unconsciously, right? If you tap into that and you understand how to do that kind of stuff. So fast forward, he learned how to basically micronize that technology, because the original portables were like one of those big blocky, keyboards, like back up those old school PC keyboards. So it had a lot of these components to it. It was all analog, but he figured out how to make it digital and also use light signaling technology now that diodes have come a long way. So he's using light and the microcrystals within these panels, and it's all kind of ones and zeros now. It's binary. So it's really generating multiple scalar waveforms using what he calls biophotonic scalar technology. And that's when, people open these things up and they're like, well, it's just a light and a circuit board and a microprocessor and all this stuff. They don't understand how it's stepping up and down voltage, or, how it's converting the alternating current to direct current to create these flashing pulses. And you've seen these flashing pulses. That's millions of frequencies within a human responsive range that has this coherent effect. It's like a symphony of frequencies that washes over the body. And that pulse every half minute keeps the cells entrained. And again, it's nothing that's 100% efficient in nature. You can't get something that protects you 100% at the cell level against EMF, because there's always some sort of entropy or energy loss when you're exposed to this stuff. But our devices work at approximately 93% effective range. And that's really important, because again, it's getting your body to do the work. It's getting the body to tune into a different bandwidth. It's almost like, I don't want to say multiple dimensions, but you're basically autonomous from the EMF. It's washing over you, it's washing through you, but your body's not responding in the immune system way, where it's actually burning up a lot of power trying to fight something it can never win against.
Yeah, that's usually, you mentioned that, and you sort of brought up a principle earlier where we're seeing growing incidence of Lyme disease and a lot of low level chronic infections. And if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that long term, living in a densely populated area like a big city where you're exposed to more of these frequencies, especially if you don't counter that with some of the beneficial frequencies that we get from nature, from sunlight, from jumping in natural bodies of water that are that connect us to the Schumann resonance from the Earth's magnetic field, or the Blue Shield technology, it can start to create an autoimmune response in the body, where the body becomes it almost sees many things as an allergen, because it's always in this state of high alert. And you use that word entrainment earlier, which is this concept that the human body, our nervous system, tends to synchronize with the dominant external stimulus, whether that's a frequency, light, sound. How can you kind of actually go back a bit to some of the work of Nikola Tesla and how he set the stage for some of the technology that you guys have rolled out with the Blue Shield?
Yeah, definitely. And Tesla, you'll see Tesla Series Gold on some of our products. It's like an homage to Tesla, the great inventor. He was the first guy to actually accidentally emit a scalar waveform from what he knew back in the day. And the actual James Clerk Maxwell was a scientist back in the late 1800s, and he was the one that actually came out with this unmanifest pure potential, 0-point field, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names for scalar energy, longitudinal waves. He came out with the math that basically proved that this fits. There's something in existence that represents this type of energy. But it wasn't until Tesla came along. And Tesla, for those of you who don't know anything about him, I think he's a pretty well-known name at this point. It's not the motor car company. He was an inventor that created basically alternating current. So we wouldn't have energy as we know it today without Nikola Tesla being alive and doing what he did. So he created numerous patents and experiments throughout his history. And when he came across longitudinal energy, the person that followed him, Albert Einstein, kind of showed that you can actually transmit wirelessly these kind of energy fields. So you have a Hertzian wave, which is a waveform which is known as a transverse wave. And this transverse wave, and you've probably heard of Hertz, or when you talk about frequencies, you're talking about Hertz. This is a frequency that basically will move at a particular speed within one cycle per second. So if you have 100 Hertz, that'll move 100 times in 1 second time frame. So those move, if you have a propagation field moving this way, a transverse wave will look like this. But scalar waves move in the same direction as that field. It's a good analogy would be like an ocean wave. So an ocean, you got this massive current underneath the surface that you can't see. It's moving in the direction of propagation, but the Hertzian waves are kind of like the waves on top of that's the measurable component that you can see in time space when we're looking at electromagnetic spectrum. So scalar are superluminal. They actually move basically faster than the speed of light, 1.5 times the speed of light. And it's basically the informational field of nature, of everything in nature. So you look at the physical component. Here's a good example that I like to use a lot. If you look at the human body, you have consciousness, right? You can hook your brain up to an electroencephalograph and get these like flashy lights, and you can show that there's brain activity in certain parts of the brain. But the consciousness behind that, what's driving it, can't really be measured. It exists in kind of a different realm. It's superluminal itself. And some of these more far out experiments, which we won't really get into because it doesn't really have anything to do with blue shield necessarily, but you can use scalar energy in multiple different ways. And it has these kind of non-local principles, which Albert Einstein called spooky particles at a distance. It's how you can split energy up and put it at vast distances and affect one of them and it'll affect the other instantaneously without the effect seemingly of time space. So it's pretty cool stuff to get into if you can learn about it. And a lot of it, unfortunately, has been repressed because it does tie into spirituality, non-locality, astral projection, some of these kind of things. But the principle of what it is that all points in time space are connected. So literally you can use conscious thought to be in a different future, past tense. Some people say leave your body. I'll leave that one up to you. Right. But yeah, it's scalar energy is vast, and Nikola Tesla's understanding of it as kind of the father of scalar energy is vast as well. And there's only been people over the generations since his time in the early 1900s that have kind of expanded upon it, tested his experiments, and kind of evolved that technology.
This episode is also brought to you by Bioptimizers and the Biohacking Secrets Upgraded Digestion Package. So if any of you guys are dealing with suboptimal digestion, characterized by gas, bloating, your stomach feeling distended or like it's sticking out after certain meals, if you get sluggish, if you deal with constipation or diarrhea, you're going to want to pay attention because it usually comes down to one of three things being off. The first is low stomach acid production. The second is low enzyme production. And the third is gut dysbiosis, meaning you have too many of the quote unquote bad bugs in your gut and not enough of the good ones. And the Bioptimizers Biohacking Secrets Upgraded Digestion Package addresses all of these root causes of suboptimal digestion. It's the best value you could possibly get if you are looking to take 30 days and turn your digestion completely around. And you can get that for just $177. It's usually $270 by going to bioptimizers.com/biohacks. That's bioptimizers.com/BIOHACKS to check out the exclusive Biohacking Secrets Upgraded Digestion Package for just $177 today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the quotes that I repeat a lot from Tesla is that if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and that's part of what really dovetails into some of the exciting aspects of the Blue Shield technology. And just as a little interesting aside, because I am a big believer in truth, and there's a tremendous amount of disinformation out there, and just the sharing of nonsense to mislead people so that it's harder for us to do things that are good for us. Like, I'm going to digress here just for 30 seconds and then bring it right back to the Blue Shield. But guys, if you think about it in terms of think of the job of CEO of Toyota or a big car company like that, right? It's an exhausting position with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And then you have this guy, Elon Musk, who's got, I don't know how many companies right now, but it's basically all nonsense. The man is a figurehead. He's not doing a lot of the things that we have been told he's doing. And he's sort of representing, anyway, for those of you guys, just because I'm interested and I like seeking this stuff, I do not believe we went to the moon. I know we didn't go to the moon. And if you think about it, I was just picking up, I bought land for the first time. The deal closed this morning. I'm, building my homestead in the new biohacking HQ. And so I'm in North Carolina, and we're in this remote place. There's tons of areas in North Carolina where you can't even make a cell phone call. To think about the fact that we went to the moon in 1969 and then called the Earth from the moon, and yet you can't get a signal in certain parts of North Carolina. There's just nonsense all over that. And a lot of this stuff has been put out there to kind of confuse people and mislead us. How did you come across the Blue Shield technology and even know that this stuff existed?
Well, my background is in herbalism, Chinese medicine, nutrition, kind of more of a holistic approach to health and consciousness. And I actually heard about it from an acupuncturist colleague of mine. He told me that this lady, a patient of his, came into his office and literally was having headaches and just felt like total crap for a whole week after plugging that thing in. And when they were,
I had a little bit of a Herxheimer reaction when I started with the Blue Shield too.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, because when your body has that extra power and it reallocates the immune power, it just goes to town, creating homeostasis, cleaning things out, letting go stuff, increasing cellular charge. Anyway, they did the traditional diagnostic, pulse reading, looking at the body, blood work, all this kind of stuff. And her organ systems were communicating far better. She's actually in better physical health, even though she was not feeling well at all. And that got me intrigued, because I had never, prior to that, you hear of all these passive devices or single frequency generators, Rife machines, plasma gas stuff. And you're like, I've never heard of anybody getting a Herxheimer reaction from an EMF production device. So that's when I got a hold of Mark over in New Zealand and had some Skype calls and kind of got a sneak peek behind the technology and what it's actually doing behind the scenes. And I was just blown away, because I'd never seen anything like it. I've known about scalar energy and these different types of bioresonant devices and some of this more advanced stuff, but I'd never actually seen anything on the market that really kind of had those qualities. That's what really got me into it.
Mm-hmm. And so I have an ENV RD10 meter we use with a lot of our coaching clients. And if you guys wanted to learn more about that, you can go to biohackercoaching.com. And this measures electrical fields, magnetic fields, and wireless fields, or RF, radio frequency. How do the creators of the Blue Shield, how did you guys measure the frequencies that were being put out? Because when I use that ENV RD10 meter around a Blue Shield device, nothing comes up.
Well, you'll get a little something.
Okay.
Our devices are FCC certified, so you'll get a little voltage charge. Go up to your toaster, your Vitamix, anything in your house that runs into the mains power. You'll get a little bit of voltage charge on the cable and on the device itself. That's just what's going to happen.
Right, but no RF was spiking when I did it.
Correct. Yeah, that's because it's pure scalar. We're not using radio frequencies like a lot of scalar companies are. So when you take a device like scalar that's super luminal, it's moving in these kind of fractal patterns. It's creating this kind of expansion and contraction field, longitudinal wave. The only way you can really measure that is, first we got the mathematics. So the math has to be solid and sound as far as distance of the transmission, the amplitude, the frequencies, all of that kind of stuff is coded in the microprocessor. And then we ended up testing it on animals, because Mark, early on, before I was involved, they were getting such outstanding results with humans. They were kind of Is this in my head? I mean, I know scalar and consciousness and all this kind of stuff kind of get intermingled, but he was talking about wanting to do it on animals. And I thought that was pretty brilliant because no other EMF company that I had heard of at the time or since actually has really put their testing up to the scrutiny of animals because they can't have a placebo effect. So they did in Auckland, New Zealand, they did the chicken farm study, and that was a 1-year study. They showed decreased fatalities, meaning they would lose an average of 60 to 120 chickens per day, per month at that time. And that's just the basic
it's
metric.
The great chicken genocide of Auckland, New Zealand.
I know. They're nervous animals. I mean, they're all uptight and nervous, and it's a pretty terrible situation when they're factory farms versus like free range and local small scale farm. So yeah, they would get aggressive towards each other. But once they put the blue shields in, first 2 weeks, nothing. And then it only rose up to 6 to 10, I think it was. I have to go over the research again. It's been a while since I talked about it, but it was only like 6 or 10 deaths that month when they first put it in. So they drew that out over a year. They looked at like the parasites, the bloods, any kind of skin blemishes, egg quality, density of eggs, thickness of the shells, and so on and so forth. And then they went on to test these cows on where they were grazing near wind turbines. And they would find that the somatic cell count or the white blood cell response in the body normalized. It was 10 times higher than it ought to be because they had all that stray voltage and dirty electricity and stuff like that. And once they put blue shield around their necks, they literally put a collar with a blue shield on and let them graze around. It normalized within a period of 2 weeks. So we find that in most humans and animals, there's a 2-week acclimation period where your body needs to create that, I guess for lack of a better word, relationship with the device, meaning it has to entrain with those frequencies being pulsed because it's not on all the time. The only devices that we have that are on all the time are the new Premium Series Ultra and the Premium Series Cube, which we added an additional waveform circuit, which basically is a continual phi ratio signal. So it has that same geometry and mathematics as like a pyramid, except it's amplified on a scalar carrier wave millions of times. So it's helping with the regeneration. If somebody's in line of sight of a 5G repeater, then you got the blue shield kind of creating the entrainment, the protection where your body's not attacking it, but it's also helping the body to regenerate quite a bit more quickly. So
that's fascinating. So, I mean, yeah, when you were talking about human studies, there is that component of like if an individual with consciousness believes that a blue shield is going to help them, there's always the possibility that that's part of what's actually generating the favorable response. But when you do it with chickens or cows, it kind of eliminates that placebo potential. What are some of the other what's some of the other research that you guys have done in humans or animals that you're pretty excited about and that our listeners might find interesting?
Yeah, so the 2 animal studies were the predominant ones where Mark felt comfortable putting this on the market. He had been testing it for a few years himself on this particular algorithm, just demonstrating it's safe, but he wanted to, again, prove to himself that it wasn't placebo. He did another research study back in 2009 where he took 12 participants and did blood work on those. And then right now I'm currently working with this third party, which is going to be the first third party study where we're getting 50 participants and we're going to do the new Premium Series devices and we're going to do dark field microscopy. We're going to do the anecdotal questionnaires, all this kind of stuff. But really what we hear just over and over, the anecdotal stuff is amazing. I mean, people that are influencers for us and just average people that can sleep better now and have this sensitivity, because a lot of the sensitivity comes from a somewhat compromised immune system in the first place. Because think about blue shield aside, like you sitting in front of your computer or anybody sitting in front of their computer for long periods of time. Some people will feel drained, some people won't. There's a constitution, there's a constitutional effect, meaning your body, like your genetic DNA potential, what you're able to stand, how much tolerance, how much endurance that you have, that'll make a difference. Some people feel it because they're immunocompromised, like you're saying with Lyme, they have just multiple conditions under the surface that are happening simultaneously. And at the end of the day, the biological effects of the EMF still harm the body, whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you feel it or not, whether it negatively impacts your day-to-day routine or not. Similarly with Blue Shield, I mean, some people, you can drop a person in the middle of that, North Carolina forest that you're talking about, and they'll be like, it's amazing. Forest bathing. They're getting all this energy from nature.
We felt it within 24 hours, less than 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you'll get people you drop in the forest and like what am I doing here? I want to go home. They won't feel a difference, but nature affects them positively because it's there. It's evolved over eons to support your life structure. So all we're really doing with this algorithm is creating something that mimics how energy works in nature with these natural laws and natural principles. And we're putting it into a device that amplifies it enough to compete with the EMF.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so for someone that's trying to assess like whether or not non-native electromagnetic frequencies, blue light, the wireless technology, even, electric or magnetic is having a negative impact on them, on their mitochondria, their ability to make energy, on their immune system. You mentioned dark field microscopy. What are some of the, outside of the anecdotal questionnaires, what are some of the blood tests or autonomic response testing or dark field microscopy, some of the diagnostic tools that you guys have found to be the most reliable way of assessing that?
Well, that's an interesting thing because the body is so dynamic. No one testing methodology is going to be perfect in and of itself. Dark field microscopy will show you certain things with the backlit blood in its live state that you otherwise wouldn't get from dried blood or any other diagnostic like heart rate variability or this or that. So what you're getting with dark field microscopy and why we like it is that you can see a substantial change in the cell membrane. I mean, I could take you right now, give you a test, and you might be dehydrated from doing podcasts all day long, and you'd have the rouleau effect. You'd have all these sticky blood platelets happening. But if I just give you like half liter of water, it'd change almost instantly. So you can change the blood. You can lay on a magnetic mattress pad and change the blood, and that'll affect it on dark field microscopy. So there's this level of like taking it with a grain of salt, having to read it, having to look at like what time of day, what section of the blood, all of these kind of things. But by and large, the one thing you can't really fake is the quality of the cell membrane. And that's what really changes when you induce this charge in the cell, because scalar will induce a charge onto the cell similar to a PEMF device without the magnetic field, which can create electropoiesis. So that's basically
what was that term?
Electroporation, actually, the correct term.
Proation. Okay.
Proation. So it's basically it kind of like sulfur-bearing compounds. If you're familiar with MSM, it kind of makes the cell membranes permeable so you can get nutrients in and waste out. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So if you're constantly exposing yourself to electromagnetic fields or pulsed magnetic fields, which are more biologically active than a static magnetic field, like laying on a magnetic mattress, you can create cell proation, which basically allows things to be permeable, and it can cause what would be the equivalent of leaky gut in the cell level. So it becomes weakened as it keeps flexing and changing. So Blue Shield using scalar is pretty interesting, is that we've seen only a strengthening effect, not any impedance on nutrients getting in or waste being removed, because the electrical charge is really kind of paramount in how nutrients move through the cell membrane. But it's pretty fascinating that if you overstimulate with PEMF devices, which are totally fine for healthy people, but people with like cancer conditions or have these kind of things that like mold, yeast, fungus in the body that you don't really want to push in the cell, that can create problems more long term.
What role do heavy metals play in all of this? And because I've found just observationally that people with they call it EHS, or like electro hypersensitivity, where, if they're around Wi-Fi or if they're on their phone too long, they're experiencing numbness, tingling, negative biological effects. They can actually, a woman that I dated, she used to be able to walk into a room and be like, oh, it's bad in here. And then I would pull out my ENVRD10 meter and she was right, but I wasn't noticing it to the same degree. I found that a lot of those people tend to have high levels of mercury or aluminum or other heavy metals in the body, almost causing this like antenna effect, where it like turns the body into an antenna and amplifies the frequencies that we are exposed to, good or bad. Is that something that you guys have observed, or is that just something that we've found in working with our members of our tribe?
We found it, but it was pretty common knowledge prior to us finding it. Heavy metals can, induce an electrical charge. And there's a difference between heavy metals and toxic metals too, because heavy metals, you need a little bit of zinc and tin, and you don't really need mercury, for example, but there's these metals and copper and such that can build up in the body to toxic levels, but are essential for functioning. It's kind of like when you're commenting on blue light briefly, is that blue light isn't necessarily bad. Again, there's no good or bad frequencies. You can find bad aspects of it when you use it at the wrong time of day, like staring at a screen, especially when it's an artificial blue light. It's completely different than looking at the blue sky or the blue ocean if you're in the Mediterranean. But it can have antidepressant qualities. It can kill certain types of bacteria under the upper dermal levels. There's some benefits to blue light too. So it's just really, again, about how it's used. But when you're talking about metals in particular, yes, they can attract these EMFs and concentrate them in a particular way, not significant, but enough to change the microbiome, which is really kind of the more dangerous part. When you have these heavy metals and your body will employ certain types of yeast and certain types of organisms sometimes to kind of deal with the toxic load. So it's best to kind of have some kind of detoxification protocol and chelation to where you can actually remove those metals on an ongoing basis, because we're just exposed to them in the environment. The animals we eat are exposed to them. Those are quite a lot of aspects, but the non-beneficial microbes that are able to proliferate in an environment that's not only EMF saturated, but also and saturated with heavy metals is pretty substantial.
You brought up a great point. I feel like one of the most misleading narratives in health and high performance is like the germ therapy, the germ theory, right? This idea that like we are separate from the microbes that help to compromise our biome. And as you sort of alluded to, like we now know that if someone's loaded with heavy metals, that individual may also have higher than normal amounts of parasites, but some of those parasites are actually like in a way consuming some metals and keeping them out of the individual to allow that individual to survive and thrive. And we're not necessarily like at war with bacteria and viruses, despite what the mainstream media may want you to believe. It's like we exist in harmony with these things. There just can be certain situations where if you're in an unnatural environment, either because of what you're putting in your body, the thoughts that you're thinking, or what's in your in your the place that you live for too long, it can start to throw off that homeostasis, and then certain more drastic steps need to be taken to restore balance and homeostasis in the body. But where we really need to focus, and part of why I'm so excited about and utilize the Blue Shield technology, is that it is, and as Louis Pasteur said on his deathbed, the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. And what the Blue Shield is able to do is to help restore a healthy terrain, a healthy environment in terms of metals and bacteria and pathogens, the functionality of your cell membrane and your blood, which are precursors to optimal cognitive performance, longevity, recovery, etc. So let's kind of take someone who's listening, man or woman. I'll give one of the changes that I've made that I mentioned earlier, but I kind of like a blueprint for what people can do today to really start creating a healthier internal and external environment. Where does the Blue Shield fit in there? So for me, for example, I mentioned to you, I just closed on some land in North Carolina. I'm starting my homestead. I'm going to be growing my own food, having independence from the supply chain, having some animals, and living closer to nature. If I were to summarize, like in working with clients ranging from people who had cancer and never wanted to get it again to we've got 4 gold medalists in our coaching program, a number of Stanley Cup winners. The one thing that I saw that helped everybody was living closer to nature. And I'm like, I need to be doing this myself. I need to, even 5G technology relates to this, where just because you have a 5G mast near your home or school does not necessarily mean it's cranking out frequencies that are bad for you. It's really like the 5G technology is directly related to the number of people that are connecting to it. And for this reason, it's important when I say living closer to nature, that usually comes with living in an area of lower population density, rather than living in a giant tower in downtown Chicago where you have 100 other people that all have, high output Wi-Fi routers, and, they're all on their phones. And then there's the supporting infrastructure for that. Can you kind of give us a blueprint based on all of the research you've seen and what you found to improve heart rate variability and create healthier, cell membranes and better, blood that is healthier when you utilize dark field microscopy? What's the game plan for our listeners to really start getting this part of their lives handled, or if they've already started, to take it to the next level?
Right. So the basic place that you start is a home unit, because it's orders of magnitude more powerful than the portable units. That's where your primary sympathetic resonance happens. And
when you say sympathetic resonance, can you explain that for the people that don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah. So basically, this device is going to pulse out signals every half minute. It's just a few seconds of pulsing every half minute. And as you're exposed to that over time, every half minute, you keep getting this wave of frequencies washing over your body. Your body, for lack of a better term, will start to seek out those signals in the environment and then train with it. If I had two tuning forks that were tuned to the same pitch, and I strike this one over here a few times, it's going to start ringing and vibrating. If this one's in tune with it, this one's going to start ringing and vibrating without this one, even touching it. So you can stop this one, and this one has a residual ring. So we're creating a residual charge on the cells over time. And that happens most strongly with the home units. If you're in urban areas and even suburbs at this point with this rollout of 5G, we always recommend going with the strongest unit that you can afford. So that would be the premium series units. It's going to have everything that the other units does with the additional waveform, like we mentioned earlier, as far as the phi ratio. Usually when you move out to more rural areas, like where you're moving now, it sounds like you could get away with even a cube or a plug-in where you're living, which you don't really need to. You can still keep what you're already used to, living with the stronger stuff in your house. So you want to basically live in that field. And again, over that 2-week period or that approximate 14-day period, that's when your body will create that entrainment. So your body will actually carry a residual charge. The portables at that point are strong enough to keep the body entrained over time. So an analogy I use is kind of like if you have one of those Tibetan singing bowls, you start creating the charge and starts humming. It takes a while to get that going. So you can get some benefit from a portable. It's not substitute or replacement, but if you strike it on the side, it's just going to ring, and then you can keep that entrainment going with the portable. So it's all the same technology. It's just different amplitudes and strengths. And right now we're just working on battery technology that can create, an ultra strength in a portable unit. Right now, it would be just so huge, you wouldn't really want to carry it. It's like carrying a dinner plate in your back pocket or something. But for anybody wanting to get started, a cube minimum for any city life. If you're rural, then you can get plugins and get just one for the downstairs and one for the upstairs. And then, get a portable to carry around with you. So when you're running errands, you're going on flights, you're going anywhere where you don't have that home base. And I actually travel with my Ultra. It's the size kind of a small novel, and that packs well with my gear. If I fly somebody or staying with it at an Airbnb, I'll set it up at base camp. And then when I go out, I just take my portable with me. And when you get back to your protected zone, one thing that's important is that just because you have multiple units doesn't necessarily mean you're becoming more protected. It's kind of like that radio station analogy again, where you can only listen to one radio station at a time. So the dominant signal, the dominant carrier signal in the environment is going to be what keeps the entrainment happening.
This episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show is brought to you by Veritas Farms and their full line of CBD products, CBD standing for cannabidiol. Now, we are real excited about this partnership because Veritas means truth in Latin, and we are big believers in bringing you guys the truth, not just through this podcast, but by making sure that any products that we share or that we bring on as sponsors are products that we personally use, believe in, and endorse ourselves. And that is the case with Veritas Farms and their full line of of CBD products. The reason that they're so great, they are full spectrum hemp products, meaning that they have all of the beneficial phytonutrients that you get in a quality CBD product. 99% of the CBD products on the market are CBD isolate, and they're just being resold, meaning they're coming from a few small manufacturers. They've only got one tiny part of all of the important phytonutrients that you need to get the benefits you want from a CBD product, and they're just a bunch of different companies reselling them. Veritas Farms is vertically integrated, meaning they own the farm. They ensure that there are no pesticides being added. It's organic, and then they control the entire process from harvesting to extraction until that product ends up at your door. That's what I love it. It's kind of like farm to table, but for CBD. And the benefits that I've noticed, my sleep is better. I feel like I get a deeper, more restful night's sleep. I'm less stressed. I never have periods of anxiety. I feel calm and focused throughout the day. And it even decreases inflammation when I have flights or other things where inflammation is an inevitable part of life. You take a little extra CBD and it can be very helpful for stress, anxiety, sleep, and that inflammation. So if you guys want to check it out, we've arranged a 15% discount for you guys. To get that, you can go to theveritasfarms.com/biohacks. I'll spell it out. THEVERITASFARMS.com/BIOHACKS to save 15%. Check out the Veritas Farms CBD. You guys are going to absolutely love it.
A lot of people can resonate with, when they travel a lot, especially if there's flights involved, it can drain your energy and your cognitive performance, your ability to get a deep, restful night's sleep. So what I've done is I have in my home base, I've got the cube set up, and then on the upper level, I've got one of the wall units plugged in, and then when I travel, I bring the portable with me. And if I'm flying, I'll have the portable, and then I'll also take anywhere from 2 to 6 tablets of molecular hydrogen to help offset some of the reactive oxygen species and free radicals that can be generated. And then when I land, I try to get in, unless it's like too late, I try to get in like a gentle workout. If I can, jump in a natural body of water, like in North Carolina, 2 out of the 3 days we were cold plunging. Actually, it was 3 out of the 3 days we went for a cold plunge, and I no longer experience any of that, the jet lag or, just feeling the after effects of travel for days or even a week like I used to.
Oh yeah. So you have the cube, you have the older models. You haven't even tried the
Yes, I didn't know you guys came out with this cool stuff.
I got to get you one of those. Yeah.
You've got one now that's putting out more frequency, or putting out frequencies more frequently.
So it has a continual signal that's interrupted with the just regular ultra strength Blue Shield. So yeah, we'll get you set up with one of those. We had some supply chain issues with the circuits and all that kind of stuff over the last few months, but yeah, we launched the new generation of that back in beginning of summer. So
wow. Okay. So fantastic. I mean, this is really cool. For those of you guys that want to check this stuff out, go to Blue Shield, BLUSHIELD-US.com. And then we've got a discount code biohacks. That's usually our discount code for you guys, BIOHACKS, to save you some money. And you guys know, like, this isn't a big part of our business. It's more so like when we find technology like the Blue Shield that is beneficial and progressive, we want to just set up a discount to encourage you to take action and really take control of your health and have more autonomy over your physical and mental performance. So again, if you want to check that out, you can go to BLUSHIELD-US.com and enter discount code biohacks. What else do people need to know about EMFs, EMF protection, the Blue Shield technology that we haven't covered?
I think they just need to think about it, because that's one of the areas, you could be supplementing with whole food supplements, living an awesome lifestyle, doing all this stuff, but be in a city and having your results hindered because you're not even thinking about how we're electromagnetic beings. Read books like The Invisible Rainbow or the Body Electric or any of these kind of things. And you'll kind of understand a little bit more of how we went into this germ theory, like you were talking about earlier. And we totally neglected that we're electromagnetic beings as well. How these electromagnetic fields, and especially scalar, affects the water in our body and the living liquid crystal that we are under the surface, and how that transmits information to not only endogenously, but to our environment, to other people, et cetera. It's really, really kind of important to at least consider your electromagnetic environment when you're talking about holistic health. If you're looking at every single angle you can, that's one thing that I found for many years. And I've always been on the eye, like had my eye out for something that would actually give me some value or benefits. And that's why I'm stand behind this brand and why I got involved back in 2017.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing, and some of the resources that you mentioned, I'm gonna add on to those. So you have the Invisible Rainbow. One of my favorite pieces of content from the Invisible Rainbow was showing how many of the pandemics that have happened over the past 100+ years actually correlate with a rollout of technology that creates a huge shift in our electromagnetic environment. And you can start with coronavirus and 5G, and then kind of work backwards to the Spanish flu, and I believe that correlated with radio, a big rollout of radio. Then there was another one for I think sonar technology, and you guys could refer to the Invisible Rainbow to see that. But if you are ignoring the role that electromagnetic frequencies have on health, you are missing a huge facet of health and performance, and you're going to have a very hard time trying to biohack with just diet, exercise, supplements, meditation, because you don't have a complete picture. You're only, you're sort of like looking at, you're only seeing a tiny piece of the puzzle. It's like there's that analogy of, I don't remember the whole story. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but like if you blindfold a man and you have him, you say, all right, touch this animal and tell me what it is. And he feels like a long, almost serpentine shape. And he goes, well, that must be a snake. And it's, you span out and it's an elephant's tail. Right. And he was way off, because that's what it's like trying to optimize your health and performance. Or if you're a coach and you're helping other people with this stuff, but you're not privy to the effect that these frequencies have on our biology, it's something that you really want to dive into a little bit more, and to understand that a lot of these beliefs around that we are like victims of pathogens. It's silly, really. It's
silly. And if you think about, and a couple notes on the 5G thing, because that's a very popular idea and it stems from the Invisible Rainbow, like you're talking about. When you're looking at the bacterial microbiome, it's dwarfed by the viral microbiome. There's just nothing you can do except live in harmony with nature, take natural substances from nature that ward off these type of organisms. And because you transmit a microwave frequency in the 5G range, which is, be it 20 gigs or 300 gigs, viruses just don't magically start dropping out of the air. It just doesn't manifest the virus. But what it does, because of the frequency range, it can weaken the immune system. And depending on if there's any resonant frequencies within the concoction of what most people have in their, their retroviral activity in their body, it can stimulate a whole host of things that are unbeknownst to people. And we actually have a really good article on retroviruses and kind of understanding what's going on and how they've been with us for a really long time, and how they've been, I guess, what's the best way to put this? Tampered with. Mm-hmm. With vaccines and with a lot of these kind of experimental things that have been happening in the last few generations. So I'll leave it at that, because that gets into another rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share my piece on this, and this, again, these are not your opinions, but guys, if you're listening, the things that we've been experiencing these past few months it's just the beginning. And if you're living in a big city center, start now by picking up some of this Blue Shield technology that we talked about. I love the Cube and the portable, and I have 3 devices in my home, but you're going to want, if you value your freedom and your health, you're going to want to take steps to get out of big cities, to have more control over your food by getting a garden, growing your own food, living closer to nature in areas of lower population density, and certainly don't be putting vaccines and that sort of thing in your body. There's so much from heavy metals to retroviruses. There's so much in there. I don't think any of our listeners are even considering that. I'm hoping they're way more intelligent than that, and they've done some of their own research. But if you really look at the timing of a lot of these vaccines, most of them were introduced long after the death rate had already hit rock bottom. And then the vaccine was given credit when it had nothing to do with it.
Like polio.
like polio. There's so many examples, and people that are telling you that that's not the case, they're misinformed. They have not done their research and they haven't looked into it. So I'm mentioning this because I care about you guys, and because frankly, that's more your health and vitality is more important to me than some of the bullies that try to keep this information from getting to you guys.
Right. And also something to know if you're investigating that, and something to consider if you're really about quality of what you put into your body, is that, think about this. The vaccine industry was going to go out of business in I think it was 86, the Reagan administration. And then they made laws that basically you can't sue the vaccine companies or manufacturers, because they were getting hit with so many lawsuits. Because again, if you understand, look at Dr. Zach Bush's work on the viral biome. It's just mind blowing if you understand how complex it is and how silly it is to think that you can take 2 or 3 of these things, put them with a bunch of adjuvants and like cross the blood-brain barrier and actually have some significant effect. If it was curing stuff, we've had, how long has the flu vaccine been around? Like 70 years or something? Hasn't knocked it out yet. So just things to consider.
Exactly. And think about this, if we're going to kind of continue, the coronaviruses have been around for 60 years. There's over 30 of these things. 4 to 7 of them are responsible for the common cold. Never has there been a successful coronavirus vaccine created. And we're expected to believe that they are going to rush create one. Come on, guys. Like we're all better than that. I know that our listeners are smarter than that. And just to kind of complete this thought, anyone that, that still was believing we went to the moon, I don't want to leave my my little comment earlier, but guys, just think about this. 1969, we went to the moon, right? They're making telephone calls to Earth from the moon. And yet we're supposed to believe that they haven't been back in 50 plus years. And then they actually just got rid of all of the evidence. And it's all nonsense. Look into it. If you want to go even further, there are videos of none of the astronauts that quote unquote went to the moon would swear on the Bible saying that they did. You watch some of these things and you'll just go, all right, it's all nonsense, right? So it's up to us to arm ourselves with information and to make decisions that protect our children. And that's why we put this out. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are conspiracy facts. And I love companies like Blue Shield and people like you, Brandon, that are giving us options for the people that currently need to be living in big cities while they make steps, hopefully, to separate from the dependence on supply chains and some of these other factors that could end up making them a modern day slave if they take this information and don't do anything with it.
Right. Exactly. And whether what we're saying or not is true or not, whether you believe it's true or not, I want to encourage people to be free thinkers and really kind of exercise their right to free speech. Like, I think that's an inherent, you should be able to say what you want. You don't have to believe it. You can click on the next podcast, but really think about things critically, not just for critical sake, just don't be a critic for critic's sake, but try and analyze both sides as honestly and objectively as you can for your own sake, for your own health.
Yeah. And I stand behind this technology. I've felt the benefits. I'm a big fan of it. I've purchased it for a number of our clients and athletes in our coaching program. If you guys want to learn more about our coaching program, again, biohackercoaching.com. And then you can pick up the Blue Shield technology that we've discussed by going to BLUSHIELD -us.com and then enter that discount code BIOHACKS, and it'll save you some dough. Brandon, anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
Well, I just check out the website. We have a lot of good articles on the education piece. We talk about a lot of these things like retroviral activity, what 5G actually is, nature therapy, all of these kind of things that we've kind of covered. We have some pretty in-depth articles there, and I appreciate you having me on and allowing me to riff out on this stuff for a little bit.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for coming on. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
What's up, guys? Anthony here, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show. One of my favorite things to do is helping men and women like you feel what it's like with the body you've always wanted and all-day energy that starts the moment you wake up and doesn't quit. Over the past decade, we've created a proprietary health assessment that helps me to identify the unique toxicities and deficiencies that may be holding you back from the life that you deserve. And what we've discovered in doing this with now thousands of CEOs, executives, professional athletes, businessmen, Hollywood celebrities, and entrepreneurs is that there's always room for improvement and optimization. Whether you're already performing at a high level or you have that feeling inside your heart that you're capable of more, the single fastest way to unlock your potential is to upgrade your mind and your body. And there's no program on earth that does that faster or to a greater magnitude than our one-on-one consulting program at www.biohackingsecrets.com/coaching. We start with our proprietary health assessment that screens you for vitamin deficiencies like A, D, magnesium, iron, etc., high cholesterol and heart disease, high blood pressure, digestive disorders, hidden infections like Lyme, Epstein-Barr, parasites, SIBO, Candida, and more that can just drain your energy in the background, especially if you don't know about them. Anxiety, depression, and cognitive disorders, autoimmune disease, adrenal fatigue, thyroid issues, mold toxicity, heavy metals, environmental toxins, and other genetic risk factors like MTHFR, APOE status, your glutathione production, and many more. We even recommend the specific tests that I use with my one-on-one clients if they're relevant for you in figuring out your biological age and identifying those key areas and opportunities that can take your life to the next level. From there, we create a customized game plan along with a personalized supplement protocol to help you optimize your weight and energy at the cellular level. And for our platinum clients, we even include a personalized workshop with me in Delray Beach, Florida. Most of the year, this program's full with a waiting list, but we just had a couple spots open up and I wanted to offer them to the listeners of the Biohacking Secrets show first. So if you're interested in seeing what it might look like for us to work together, head over to www.biohackingsecrets.com/coaching. That's www.biohackingsecrets.com/COACHING and fill out the short application form. If you're pre-approved, you'll be given the opportunity to book a time to connect with someone on our team and see if it's a fit. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and I look forward to potentially going on this journey together.